Did I ever tell you guys that I was born right when the Disney Renaissance began? Okay, what I mean by Disney Renaissance is that, incredible as it sounds today, there was a long stretch of time where Disney weren't doing so hot. While many of them are now remembered fondly, their movies consistently underperformed, lacked in budgets, and some of their 70s output even outright recycled animation to keep costs down. And in the mid-80s, after the failure of the intended fantasy epic The Black Cauldron, they were actually pretty close to collapsing in on themselves. But outside of starting their TV branch, Disney made a hell of a comeback in 1989 when they decided to just go all out and pour every cent into making The Little Mermaid. Famously based on a Danish fairy tale, I might add. Which sparked what is now known as the Disney Renaissance of the 90s, when all of those huge Disney musicals we remember so fondly today were made. And it was around this time that, at least in Denmark, Disney began to re-release their entire animated canon on VHS. So when I say I grew up with Disney movies, I very much did. My 90s were spent watching Disney movies on VHS with my dad and my sister. And whenever a new movie came to the theaters or out on VHS, it was always a big event. Hell, I still go with my dad to see most major animated movies to this day. One staple of 90s childhood I didn't have, however, was a Super Nintendo. I have mentioned before that my family never really got video games. My first console was a used PlayStation 1 I bought from my uncle for my own money, so I've only really played SNES games on things like emulators and Wii eShops until I bought a second-hand SNES much later as an adult. So why am I bringing all of this up? Well, that's because today, we're looking at Capcom's Aladdin game for the Super Nintendo. You see, when I was growing up with all these old VHS tapes, Aladdin was one of my top favorites, and I can still pretty much quote the Danish dub of the movie from beginning to end. Outside of just being seriously funny, colorful, and set in a cool fantasy world, I think it was largely because Aladdin was the closest thing Disney had to a male action hero at the time, at least until Hercules and Tarzan came along. So when I finally did get that SNES and a copy of Aladdin made by Capcom, who has a stellar reputation when it comes to Disney-based games, I knew I had to play it. And I think it's about time we give it a look. The game is a pretty standard platformer type of deal, letting you play as Aladdin as you go through the basic plot of the movie, with little storybook-style cutscenes in between to fill you in on the actual story. While these aren't really animated and are more like narrated comic book panels, they've actually gone pretty far with recapturing the awesome opening where we get to see the Cave of Wonders. The merchant's speech is also there, but we don't get to see him. I'm guessing the graphics limitations on the SNES just couldn't handle the size of his nose. I'm kidding actually, the game looks pretty damn fine and colorful, capturing the movie's art style rather well and presenting the Arabian-inspired setting as pretty warm and inviting. Fittingly enough, you start out in the marketplace, making for a pretty good starting spot to get a hang of the controls and the overall feel of the game. Like I said, it's a standard platforming deal. You run, you jump, you have a health bar with a set amount of hits, and you collect sparkly floated gems that are just kind of hanging out there in thin air, which honestly makes me wonder how the hell Aladdin even manages to be a street rat in the first place.
Is this where you live?
Yep, just me and Abu. Come and go as we please.
And this is my collection of spontaneously materializing gemstones. I mostly use them to decorate my toilet bucket. So anyway, about how poor I am. There are, however, a few unique aspects to it. You have a sprint button for faster movement, and the game avoids the obvious solution of giving Aladdin a sword to attack with in favor of playing up his acrobatic abilities, meaning you can defeat enemies by kicking them when you swing from poles, or outright flipping over them when you jump on them in a pretty clever take on the old jumping on enemies trope. Because who doesn't remember that classic scene where Aladdin heroically rescues the princess from the surly shopkeep by violently snapping his neck in mid-parkour? No wonder the girl goes insane. She nearly gets her hand chopped off and then witnesses cold-blooded murder.
Oh, hello, Doctor. How are you?
Oh, you poor innocent soul. Thankfully, the level design is entirely built around this kind of maneuverability as you swing from poles, jump over platforms, flip over rows of enemies and obstacles, and hang off of ledges in order to collect the many green gems and the rarer red gems, whose purpose I'll get back to later. It can actually be really fun to nail a series of jumps and make Aladdin appear super athletic and smooth, like in the One Step Ahead number in the movie. You can also pick up apples and throw them at enemies to stun them for a moment, but I always end up almost exclusively using them against bats in later levels because no matter what you do, these things will fuck up your jumps otherwise, and it feels so good to nail them! Are you hungry for apples, Beth? Are you hungry for apples, Beth? The game also gives you a few upgrades as you go along. You'll find hearts that upgrade your health meter, the usual 1-ups, and a sheet that you can use to glide over long distances that stays with you until you lose a continue. This thing is awesome, and I'll get back to you on why. Most interesting, however, is the scarab hidden in treasure boxes in some levels. When you find it, it flies ahead, and if you manage to catch it in mid-flight, you'll unlock Genie's break time and get a spin of the Genie wheel after completing the level, where you can win things like extra continues, 1-ups, a refill of your health meter, and whatever that genie face does. Because I didn't play this as a kid, and thus I haven't played it a million times, and no matter how many times I played as an adult, I never land on that goddamn genie square, and I have no idea what it does! What are you hiding from me, genie square? What wonders do you contain? Oh, he just gives you hearts. Okay. Anyways, it makes for a nice little bonus between stages, and catching the scarab in the level and knowing there'll be a bonus waiting for you feels pretty damn good. Alright, genie wheel time. I can't wait to see what bonus I owe. Oh my, oh dear. I really hope that's his finger.
Haha! Dangly parts.
You do also gain extra hearts for the life meter by collecting 100 green gems, so there's pretty good incentive to try and grab as many as you can. The red ones count for 3 and are much harder to reach, but again, I'll get back to what else they do later. Finally, the game doesn't really have a save feature and instead uses a password-based stage select system. The passwords consist of combinations of 4 character portraits of Aladdin, Jafar, the Sultan, Jasmine, Genie, and Abu, who looks like he is desperately trying to look good for his new driver's license photo after an epic week-long bender. Anyway, now that we've gone over the core gameplay, let's look at the levels one by one. After rescuing Jasmine when you clear the marketplace, which by the way includes a clever little Donkey Kong bit, you are thrown in jail per the movie and dragged along to the Cave of Wonders by Jafar, where the first thing you do is
Buy some apples!
And make your way to find the lamp. This is where the game starts to get a little bit more treacherous with small puzzles, new surprises, and slightly more annoyingly placed enemies. Nothing too bad, but you do have to be a bit more on your toes. It's not until Abu steals the lamp that things get hairy. First you get a scrolling level of trying to leap through the cave while all the lava is rising, which isn't too hard, but does require some time jumping. Oh, and if you're having trouble reaching some gems and got some leftover health, just get a boost from the level hazards. A little molten lava never hurt anybody, right? But then the cave collapses! And this is usually where people start to lose continues. Just like in the movie, you gotta outrun the lava while riding carpet, and while this isn't a very long stretch and not that hard, you will get your ass handed to you if you stop paying attention. Try to stay ahead of the wave, get smacked by a curve in the tunnel and die instantly. Stay too high, can't dodge rocks, die instantly. Stay too low, same problem as getting ahead, die instantly. Hang back to watch for onward hazards, catch a wave dude and die instantly. But it's no use anyway, as just like in the movie, you don't quite make it to the end and instead end up caught in the cave with the lamp. In order to read the writing on the old lamp, Aladdin rubs it with... He rubs it with his sleeve. He rubs it with his sleeve. With his sleeve. A genie appears and declares that Aladdin is his new master. But first he invites Aladdin into the lamp and whoa, what? What the hell is this? Okay, no, wait, let me check. No, yeah, that's definitely a friend like me in the background, so this level is supposed to be the equivalent of the friend like me scene from the movie. So why the hell are we here? Look, I get that you want to expand the game and leave your own mark on it, but what was wrong with the scene in the movie? You could run across an ever-changing background or jump from the literal columns Genie summons and dodge dancing camels, and there's all sorts of material for a wacky hijinks level. But instead we end up in what looks like a Genie equivalent to one of the Mark Hamill Joker's hideouts. And do you know why? Because I do. This isn't the friendly, wacky, funny Robin Williams Genie you all remember and love. No. This is a cruel, sadistic, psychotic spirit of unfathomable cosmic power. Not only does he have the gall to offer you survival necessities in exchange for staring at his bulbous, jiggly genie grundle, but he also unwillingly drags you into his surreal nightmare land for no other purpose than to torture you and to drill his grinning face into your psyche! Why else do you think he's in the game over screen, literally holding the strings of your life in his hands? Oh, he lets you choose death as your only escape from this nightmare, but look at how happy he gets when you decide to keep fighting. He's laughing because it means he gets to keep tormenting you in his demented pocket reality. You may think you've got everybody fooled with your charm and your wit, but I see through your lies. I'm on to you, you giant blue bat! Next up is the part where the game just flat out starts making shit up to get another level out of the deal as Abu falls off the carpet and gets lost in the desert. when Aladdin swoops down to rescue the playful monkey he discovers. Well, don't keep me in suspense, game! What does Aladdin discover? His love for wine and loose women? A passion for the arts? His own budding homosexuality? What? Tell me! Oh. A pyramid. Yeah, this is just here to be another level. Much like the Cave of Wonders, things get a little more treacherous here, but honestly, if you have managed to not lose a continue and still have the blanket or rock or sheet or whatever, you can glide over most of it with very little problem. And also, the soldiers are back. They're purple now. That's their attack. Oh, and it's also one of the few levels to have a boss fight. Ah, just kidding, it's just a Boo wearing a Sphinx mask. Ha ha ha, how cute and clever and funny, and next! Next up is a whole new world. No enemies, no pitfalls, no traps to avoid. Just you flying around and collecting gems while you listen to the song. It's actually rather nice and works well as a little reward for getting as far as you did. The only problem is if you actually want to fly around and enjoy the huge setting, you'll most likely end up missing those red gems. And again, I will get back to you on why those are important later, so hold your horses. And then the game just decides to skip a sizable chunk of the story, and suddenly you're trying to make your way back through the castle in order to defeat Jafar. And this level has one of the best features of the whole game. You can pun Diago with apples. Take that, Gilbert Gottfried! That's for singing in the sequel!
Okay, I'm little, been playing Tekken Fiddle, and I don't get no respect.
But still, man, I don't get it. We already had that weird pyramid level and the alternate friend like me level, so clearly Capcom weren't afraid of basing levels on set pieces from the film that weren't action oriented, or even come up with their own. So if they want to expand the game, why are they ignoring a bunch of possibilities? Why not have a level where you try to escape the guards with Jasmine and Toad during the night in Agrabah? Why not play your way through the desert after being freed from prison? Why not jump across camels and elephants and servants to the throne of Prince Ali in order to try and reach the palace? Why not have Genie give you an air bubble and have to swim your way to safety after Jafar tries to drown you? Why not a repeat of the lava escape level, where instead you have to keep moving through the snow or get squashed by the palace tower? This already isn't a very long game, and who knows, maybe Capcom had heavy time or budget constraints, I really have no idea. But if you're going to go through the trouble of adding extra levels to pad the game out, then why ignore all the stuff that's available to you? It just seems like a giant waste to me when they've done such a great job of adapting the rest of the movie. Anyway, the palace level is honestly little more than warm-up for the game's only real boss, Jafar. And yeah, he is the only real boss. Abu was a joke and the shopkeeper is so easy he might as well be. Jafar's first form makes for a pretty decent fight as you basically dodge his sweeping movements and his enemy summons, all while you wait for him to throw his staff at the ground, dodge the lightning, and then use it as a jumping point to reach him for an attack. Don't think this is too easy though. Aladdin's sluggish fall speed and movement mean you gotta do some work to time it just right. But when you do defeat him, that's when things get really awesome. That's right, we're fighting Giant Snake Jafar, and oh my god, just watch this transition to the boss. How epic does it get? You're running around on top of his body, dodging loogies, and once again trying to use them as jumping points to get to the top of his head. Or, simply wait for him to swipe at you. Too bad he also moves his body to try and toss you into the fire below. You gotta be constantly jumping here, and it's quite easy to get into the fire or get hit by those snake loogie things. With a little luck and some tenacity, the fight can be very, very short, but hell, A+ for presentation for sure. And so, with everything said and done, the whole thing ends just like in the movie, and we get a beautiful reprise of the magic carpet ride over the credits. Good stuff! Wait. What's this? What's that? What's this thing? Okay, yeah, let's finally talk about those red gems. You see, in each of the 7 stages, Agrabah, the cave, the desert, the magic carpet ride, so on and so forth, there are 10 red gems outside of the regular green ones, making for a total of 70 red gems to collect. Before I played this game, I kept hearing about how impossibly difficult it was, but honestly, it's really not. It's only difficult if you decide to actually go for those red gems. Like I mentioned, they're worth more and considerably harder to reach. Oh, the first few are nice and simple, of course, but they gradually start popping up in less and less obvious places where you're going to need to either know ahead of time that they're gonna appear in order to be able to grab them, or perform some death-defying stunts that will be utterly impossible without the sheet. Which makes for a pretty nice incentive to not lose all of your lives on a continue, since that's really the only way you can lose it. This is where you find the replay value of the game. trying to learn all the spots and the fancy tricks you had to perform to grab all the red gems. But to be perfectly honest, I end up just not fucking bothering after a while. So what do you get for collecting them all? What is your ultimate reward for going through the painstaking work it is to memorize and pull off all the difficult jumps to grab every one of those glorious red gemstones? A slightly different credit sequence where you get to see Aladdin run around in the levels. Blow me, Capcom! Seriously, that's it! That's the one unlockable in the whole game. No hard mode, no bonus level, no extra boss fight against Genie Jafar or something cool like that. Not even some kind of animated sequence from the movie like, I don't know, Friend Like Me or something. Just a fucking montage of the shit you already did. Joy! How is this in any way worth the effort outside of pure bragging rights? How am I supposed to give a fuck about the red gemstones if all I get for putting in the work to get them is just snapshots of the game I just beat? Look, I know this was made in like 1993, but still this was a new and better console, and plenty of other games at the time at least hid secret power-ups in the levels or were clever enough to give you some kind of reward for replaying a lot, or offered alternate paths to take in the levels. Seriously, why not at least have a Genie Jafar boss? I know the sequel hadn't been made yet, but he's still there in the movie, and like I said before, they clearly weren't afraid of adding things, so I see no reason why not. I mean, if you're not gonna put a decent carrot at the end of the stick, why even have the stick there in the first place? And it really doesn't help that if you choose to ignore them, the game is a breeze. My playthrough for this video took me about an hour, and the only reason I ever lost a continue was because I got so cocky I'd occasionally just use the sheet and see how far I could get and then end up falling. Well, that and a couple fuck-ups in the lava wave stage. Still, for its short length and a lack of a real reward for beating it, it's pretty freaking wonderful. For all the shit I've given it for a lack of bosses and being almost ridiculously short and easy, it really is a well thought out platformer. It might not be the most unique thing out there, but the movie's setting and scenes are lovingly recreated, the levels are decently created, and they do throw in a few surprises when it comes to enemies at least. And no, I have no idea what the hell these things are. Hey chef, do you have any idea what that is?
Chicky in the basket.
Okay, yeah, let's go with that. Abu and Genie are quite expressive when they show up too, which does give the game a bit of character, and I do genuinely love that they based the core mechanics on Aladdin's acrobatics. It's also really nice to hear some 16-bit versions of some of the classic songs. Though I can't for the life of me figure out why they didn't use One Step Ahead in the first level. Oh well, it's still pretty damn good. Aladdin on the SNES may not exactly be some kind of platforming masterpiece, but for a fan of the movie and of 2D platformers in general, it's a pretty nice revisit to one of the movies that brought Disney back to greatness. It's a perfectly good game to pop in if you just want to revisit the Arabian Nights once in a while. Still, I do wish there was some way I could get to experience more of Agrab. Oh, Kingdom Hearts remix. Hey there guys, thanks a bunch for watching my review of this neat little game. If you enjoyed it, why don't you hit the like button and tell me in the comments what your favorite Disney movie or game is. And if you're sitting there wishing there was more like it, well, worry not. Just check out my channel and press the subscribe button for more videos about movies, cartoons, games, comic books and other nerdy goodies. You can also follow me on social media and, if you're feeling generous, support me on Patreon. There are links to all of it in the description below. Thanks again and see you in the next episode.